If home is where the heart is, should the heart of a smart city be multifamily? Hi, I'm Tanya Hall for ZDNet, and joining me is Felicite Moorman. She is the CEO of STRATIS and Ba-Logics. Welcome, Felicity.
Thank you, Tanya. Great to be here.
What is STRATIS and what is Ba-Logics?
That's the question I get every day. So Stratus is specifically software that enables Internet of Things devices, most specifically in multifamily and student housing. So we're fitting kind of a niche market today, really focused on that space that's been tech neglected for so long. Ba-Logics, on the other hand, is an Internet of Things hardware company. So we partner with your Fortune 500 companies to assist them in creating smart devices from dumb devices, but in about 20% of the time that it would otherwise take them to ramp up an engineering team on some of the protocols today and get to market.
I've heard you talk about that when you originally launched your company, that you wanted to focus on hospitality, but you soon realized the need in multifamily dwelling. Talk about what the difference and how underserved that community was.
Well, it's a fairly spectacular group of differences. Honestly, I was and am fairly consistently shocked at the number of use cases and edge cases that apply in multifamily that frankly aren't required in hospitality. Hospitality is a much simpler market to serve when it comes to your guest versus your resident. Somebody goes to a hotel to visit. Somebody goes to an apartment to live. And that's a very different mentality. And the use cases surrounding that and the needs surrounding someone's home mimic, in some cases, single family, but with all of the back end needs of hospitality. So you really have a mix in the commercial residential space that is unique to any group. And that is why multifamily had been neglected for so long. It's a very unique market.
I've heard you say also that you work a lot with universities and student housing. Millennials seem to be a obvious fit for Internet of Things, but how important is it really to service that demographic?
Yeah, it's a sweet spot for us. And surprisingly, it's not because of the millennials. We're actually finding almost an equivalent need in the boomer space. So if you think about fixed income, you think the people who are adopting these technologies for the purpose of increasing their own efficiencies are quite nearly equivalent to our millennial demand. But in student housing, it's really the student housing owners and managers who are looking to increase their efficiencies with the Internet of Things that are making the difference in that demographic.
How liable is the property owner for privacy?
Privacy and security, both, are front of mind for every single serious technician. So if you're a technologist in the space, it has to be your first priority 24/7. If you are a property owner, it's very much the same. But what we're excited to have found is that we're actually increasing the security on these properties. So if you think about a hard key, now I'm guilty of this myself, let's say it's been a few years, but you take a key that says do not duplicate someplace that will duplicate it. Maybe it's a little corner shop, maybe it's a big box store, but somebody duplicates it for you. And maybe you give it to your bad boyfriend. Maybe you just give it to your dog walker or your dry cleaner, but you duplicate a hard credential that should not have been duplicated. The property manager, the property owner, is liable for everyone on their property. In student housing and multifamily, that creates some real insecurities. But here's something you don't find. When you have a Bluetooth door lock and the only credential for that door lock and all of the door locks on the property are someone's phone, they're not sharing that device. I don't give my phone to my dog walker so that they can get into my building or my unit. What I do is I send a request to my property manager to send their phone a Bluetooth credential. So all duplication of credentials now goes directly and appropriately through property management. So we're increasing the security on properties using these systems.
Felicity, millennials are pretty tech savvy, but there are properties where residents are more senior and maybe not quite as savvy. We all have parents and grandparents who are trying to use Internet of Things technology. At that point, does the property manager become tech support?
Yeah, that's an additional great question. Listen, when my dad got an iPhone, I knew we were onto something. For that reason, and I think frankly, all software companies need to support themselves, need to be able to support themselves and to provide fully functioning tech support. We cannot have property managers providing that. Number one, it's more complicated than they could easily understand and train for. Number two, it's simply not their job. If we're creating more work for property owners and managers, we're defeating the purpose of the smart technology, if you will, and we're really creating some dumb problems.
Do you gather data yourself, or are there any partners that gather data on some of the smart technology?
We don't partner with data collection. It's all ours. It's all internal. It's perpetual and fully audited. So anything that happens on your property as a property owner or manager, you now have access to perpetual audit trails, both from an access standpoint, but also from an energy standpoint. Now, I anticipate in the future, we'll see third parties who can provide real value to property owners and managers using that data, and they will be permissive in allowing us to partner. But that will be per their purview. Our job is to make a building more efficient and increase the retention and ability to recruit residents.
Are you providing any of that data now for any sort of research or analytics?
Yeah, for property owners and managers, they can pull reports on any number, dozens of different use cases on their property. Now, that said, I recommend some care in using it. For instance, if you find that no one is really using your gym on your property, you might be inclined to get rid of the gym on your property. But the truth is only 10% of people looking to rent today will rent a property that doesn't have a gym. So you can't just dive into the data and assume that you know what it really means for your property. But it is a good way to start understanding the use cases of your property. Like, we all get a gym membership, but none of us actually use it, and the gyms rely on that. Guilty. But that said, there is some care to be taken in reviewing this privatized and anonymized data that we can provide.
One of the other concerns or things that we should, I think, be paying attention to is urban areas. I mean, 35% of the US population is renting. 50% of those are under the age of 30. What kind of opportunity exists for the smart city and multifamily dwellings?
It's a tremendous opportunity. If you think about home, if home is where the heart is, then the heart of a smart city is multifamily. That's where we live in cities. We don't live in bunches of single family spaces typically. And that's an opportunity to create an increase in efficiencies beyond almost any other use case in smart cities. And while it's being largely neglected today, because the city itself doesn't necessarily see a benefit from adjusting energy usage in multifamily, I do expect that we will see utilities begin to engage very widely through demand response capabilities in these buildings that we're implementing with smart thermostats and smart grid technology to eliminate blackouts and brownouts in some of our most congested spaces. And that's absolutely necessary. If you think about the population of our US cities doubling in the next 2 decades, there's not an efficiency that we can afford not to address.
I'm very excited about the smart cities, and I appreciate your insight on this. If somebody wants to connect with you and find out more about what you're doing or get some advice on how to make their city smart, how can they do that, Felicity?
So I would recommend our website. It's stratissiot.com. That's STRATISIOT.com. Or just reach out to me directly. It's Felicity@stratissiot.com.
And thank you again. And if you want to follow me, you can follow more of my interviews here on ZDNet or Tech Republic. Or if you want to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter at Tanya Hall Radio, or find me on Facebook by searching for The Tanya Hall Show. Until next time.